Mustache Comics, Cosmic Mustache Comics.
Clint Basinger here. We're just back from San Diego Comic-Con. This is my wife Lindsay, and together we created this Mummynaut costume, the cosplay costume we took with us to San Diego Comic-Con.
So we're gonna go over just all the materials that we used and how we made it, and if anybody has any questions they can contact us or comment. So hopefully this is helpful to anybody else that's working on a costume. Well, why don't you talk about your character?
This is my Mummynaut comic, and he's become one of my favorite characters lately. And we thought he'd be a really cool costume to make.
So we wanted to go to Comic-Con as sort of like a recon mission. Clint has worked a lot of conventions in the Midwest, and sold a lot of his work and networked with a lot of people in the Midwest. But we'd never gone out west, and we were really interested in, since Comic-Con's the biggest one in the US, maybe the world, it's International Comic-Con, and we really just wanted to kind of see what it was out there and kind of do some guerrilla marketing with his brand and network with different companies, and so we really wanted to make a costume that we thought stood out. So Clint already had his character developed, but he really worked hard on putting together a really solid front and back sketch, and I think that's really important when you're developing a costume, is just knowing all the elements that are there. So once we had the sketch, we figured out what materials we had to buy. So in this case we bought some moon boots, and we bought we bought an acrylic globe. First we bought a dome, which was really funny, but it only covered half. This is we're kind of making the cracks more stable right there. That's why there's tape on here. We bought a dome, right? Clint was thinking that maybe we could do it was mirrored, but we learned quickly that you couldn't actually see through the mirror, and also it only covered half of the face, and it was way too big. But it made for a really funny laugh. But so don't go with a dome, go with a globe. So Clint, we bought we were really down to the wire. Once we finally decided on this, we didn't buy it until pretty close before, and then it was shipping during a holiday weekend, and it was big, and so we were like, oh my gosh, it actually didn't come until the night before. The night before we were gonna leave. It was pretty crazy. But so we bought some Dremel tools. So Dremels are pretty awesome, but not all of the bits are meant for plastic, and so we bought what you use that cylinder or that disc thing, right? Mostly, yeah. So there's they're lock cutters. It was a lock cutting kit that we bought, but there was a couple in there that were just for plastic, and I think that's what he used most. But so Clint cut all this out, and then what did you use to do? So these actually are just drawn on with the Dremel. They're not actually cracks, which I thought was a really awesome detail that I didn't know he was going to do. So what?
I use that same plastic cutting disc for the Dremel to create the crack.
Just push it as hard, or
right?
Yeah. So he cut this out because Mummynaut, his character, was hit with a meteorite. So that was, and also it was really vital for breathing because I was the one in the costume, so at the show. But we'll probably.
So the story helped contribute to her being able to breathe.
Yeah, thank goodness he got hit with that meteorite because it really helped. Yeah, so we bought those two pieces, and then if you look at the sketch, we saw that there was a bunch of hardware. So we also, we're still working on this jetpack. That's going to be Mummynaut 2.0, but there's a lot of pieces that needed to be stiffer, like this shield here. So this is actually Warbler. And what's on the inside is this kind of foam, only it's about 2 inches thick. So we covered this with Warbler. Warbler is a pretty typical cosplay material, and I'm actually not as fluent in it as I would like to be, but I studied it on the web and through YouTube and stuff. So there's pretty good tutorials, but it's a thermoplastic material, and here's a little piece of it. And so right now it's really stiff, but when you have a heat gun, it heats up and it gets pretty pliable, but it's still hot. So what did you do to like prevent from burning yourself? Because he did most of the warbling.
I'd heat it and then let it cool just for a moment, and then just fold it around and move your fingers a lot to keep them from getting too hot.
So like you have to use a heat gun. Like a hairdryer wouldn't cut it. However, you don't want the warbler to get too hot. Like you don't want it to, like it'll actually like melt through it and stuff. So you don't want to use the hottest setting. Probably would you use like a kind of the lower end setting or the medium?
Yeah, medium to high.
Yeah. So and don't like put it right up against it. You gotta kind of pull it back a little, and you just kind of hit an area. Like in this case, because this is actually like one giant piece of foam, like the front and the back, and then one giant piece of warbler with about an inch and a half around the sides. And so then he could wrap it around, and then he did an inside piece that did not have an inch and a half. So both sides are warbler. But yeah, so he would have to heat a little bit at a time, and this was a multi-person job. We had some amazing friends. Thanks, Deb and Matt, come over after work, and just because I was sewing and he was working on this, and it really needed someone to hold and someone to heat gun it, and like it definitely took more than one person to do this. But so when you have warbler finished, like it's not finished. Like you have to add like wood putty or caulking to make it the surface that you want to have like a really smooth surface. It takes a lot of sanding, so really budget a lot of time if you're gonna work with warbler. Like it really takes like, you know, do a little bit, sand it, add a little caulking, sand it, add some wood putty, sand it. And then we used spray paint, but I think we want to actually go in and make it look a little bit more aged, so we might actually do some more layers to it. But this, in terms of like, we were really under the wire for this costume, so we were just like, what can we get done? And honestly, we got this done because we had like 15 people help us with it, and we worked around the clock for about 4 days, and then we decided to call in a lot of extra hands to do it because really hard. It was just a lot. This is like the most detailed costume I've ever worked on, and I sew a lot of crazy stuff. But so let's see, this is actual gauze, the sleeves, and then the head here, like medical gauze, but it had to be stretch gauze. It couldn't be non-stretch gauze because we needed to be able to put our arms like in and out of it and like pull it over. So these were stretch mummy wraps that we tea-dyed in a pot, like on the stove, and I didn't think about the fact that, so I tea-dyed them, I washed them out, I threw them in the dryer because we were in like a really big hurry, and I didn't think about the fact that it was gonna tea-dye our dryer, which happened, and my little sister, I paid her to clean it out because otherwise I wasn't gonna have clean clothes for our trip. But so these were stretch gauze that we bought off Amazon. Most of the stuff we bought off Amazon because of the Prime shipping. Couldn't live without it. And then so we ran into this thing where we had this happen a lot, where we would just run into a problem, or like it didn't work out the way I thought, and so we just have to kind of like adapt and roll with it. And so Clint really wanted like a more authentic wrapping, so he actually draped these on this actual mannequin here. And then my mom, who is like an amazing seamstress, Kathy, hand stitched all of this stuff for us, the mask and that, because again, like we just needed all the hands we could to like make this costume happen. I'm trying to think, and the belt is also warbler. This is just like a piece of some kind of a PVC fabric. I think it's like a sparkly red PVC fabric. And then this is like a burlap, because we wanted to have like different aged feels. That we had some friends cutting this for us, and Clint draped it on and attached these. There's also some on the leg that you can't see in the boot. Then the suit is canvas. Clint really wanted it to have the feel of like an astronaut suit, so we wanted a real sturdy fabric. And then this, what'd you say this was, a car cover? Yeah, so Clint had this huge amount of this, which is good because we had to use it for a lot of different things. And how we did, so he really wanted this like texture, or this sort of pleated texture. I have a sample here. So I had more of this stuff, but this was about an inch thick foam. And this is the kind of foam that you put in cushions and stuff. You can get it by the yard at fabric stores. But this is about, what does that look like, a half inch maybe? This is about a half inch thick. And so I eventually, like, I just laid the pattern piece over some foam and I sewed like a rectangle of it. So what I would do is I would sew a line and then I would lay a piece of masking tape over it so that and then I would sew next to the masking tape so that it would be kind of an even strip. And then I had to really kind of pull it to try to not get some of this texture. And so I got really good at it as I kept doing it. And then there's silver thread on top. But an issue that we ran into is that I forgot, like when I was patterning this, that like it was gonna take away a 1/2 inch all over the suit on multiple sides because of this padding. And so we actually like decided to add some black tuxedo strips on the side so that we felt more comfortable in the suit. So again, like we just kind of like adapted as we started to fabricate just to make it the way we wanted it to make. And so on the leg, or on the knee, and there's some detail on the leg that covers the boot, and then the side, that's a marine vinyl. It's a black marine vinyl, which of course is like really hard to sew. He had these like gathered bits at the bottom that were like really specific, and so we actually got 2 different sizes of piping. It was like rope from the fabric stores, the biggest piping I have ever seen. It was like the size of a 50-cent piece for one of them, and then we got another size, and that's how so that was crazy how to make that. So I like so first I like sewed the fabric together, so I made like a tube of fabric, and then I actually taped the piping together because I couldn't find a way to like delicately sew it, so I just taped it. And then in the tube of fabric, I pulled it up over the piping, and then there was like a 2-inch lip, and then I put like the next one on top of it, and I would like baste it. I would baste it into this tube. This is probably not making sense to anybody because it was crazy. And I had to make sure that it was big enough to fit over the moon boot. So then I would put the next one on top, and that one was also basted in. And then I would sew those 2 together, and then I put the next one on top because there's like this 2-inch lip above the basted in piping. And I did this 4 times. And it was really hard to flip that inside out because it was so thick. And so then I attached it to the leg. But on the boot leg, I had to make the part that covers the boot like separately, and then my friend Natsuko actually hand sewed the leg to the jumpsuit because it was just so much. It was just like I said, there were so many things that we were doing at once, and hand sewing takes a really long time, and so it was really amazing that she did that. My friend Jamie hand sewed. So you can't see this, but there's a stretch. What holds those sleeves in place is like a stretch fabric, like a lycra, so that I could because these are actually separate from the suit. And my friend Jamie was hand stitching. Actually, she had to rip it out for me, and then she hand stitched it on. I feel like Jamie did a ton of stuff. And Jamie and Debbie and Matt figured out how to. We really wanted like this piece here to kind of this. So this is another one of those inch-wide pieces of foam like that's in here that Debbie and Matt covered with mummy wrappings, and then Jamie kind of helped us figure out. So Clint cut these slits for the Velcro. The Velcro's in here. So I guess we didn't mention that. Underneath the shield is red Veltex, which is the soft side of Velcro. So we had a lot of things like this helmet actually lights up, which I just bought on Amazon a string of battery-powered LED lights. And those are hand-tacked, hand-sewed in there, if you can see that. But so the battery pack has Velcro on it. And then this is 1-wrap Velcro, and this white piece is here so that it didn't scratch up my face when we put it on, because this just like barely fits over my face. And so everything can go under the shield and then Velcro to stick to the Veltex to hold it in place. And then so anything that we glued, I researched this special plastic glue. Let me grab one. Oh, here's one. JB Quick 2-part epoxy, which was a 6-minute setup, which was pretty essential for us, I feel like. But so I used that multiple times. We used that under there. And then some places, like when Clint was tacking the wrappings to the boot, he just used like hot glue and stuff. Stuff that wasn't a critical thing to use. I'm trying to think. Oh, the gloves. We actually bought the gloves. I can make gloves, but it's like, again, we were just under a time. We were like, what can we actually achieve? And it just wasn't worth the time to like we knew we could get really cool sculptural gloves. So these again were on Amazon. They're some kind of a sport glove, right? But we did, we modified them to add the Mummynaut patches, and then the wrist part of the glove is actually a separate piece, which made it much easier to get on and off. And I actually used it to like hide business cards in at the con, which was fun. The patches are Veltex and Velcro, and then I used a buttonhole stitch to stitch them on. But I had to do that on an old machine because my machine is really a newer machine and the buttonholes are actually like programmed, whereas I just wanted to use the buttonhole stitch to sew with. So I had to use a really old Husqvarna machine to do the buttonhole stitch. So I was actually working on 2 different machines. There's a zipper, how you get into it, there's a zipper in the back. It's a standard zipper, but you don't even really see it. There's a bone. Mummynaut only has 1 leg, so that was kind of a how do we pull that off kind of a thing. So we ultimately went with having black underneath that second leg to try to like make it seem like it's not there, and then the bone is foam that Clint paper mache'd so it looks white, and this is a different kind. This isn't like the green foam. This is like an installation foam. It's thicker. You can buy it in 4-foot by 8-foot sheets at the hardware store, and that's also what the jetpack is made out of when we do Mummynaut 2.0. And then I think Debbie and Matt wrapped it in mummy wrappings, I think. But seriously, like Mindy, Natsuko, Deb, Matt, Jamie, Annie Brown and her boys, everybody else, my mom, my sisters, like we could not have done this without you. Like I can't even. Like people stayed until like 1 in the morning the night before our flight, and so we went to bed at 6 in the morning the day of our flight. We had worked on this costume like nonstop for like a week. We weren't sure if it was gonna come together. We weren't sure how we were gonna get it there. Like we had just been working. So our friends, Annie and her boys, like by some miracle showed up at lunchtime to make sure that we were up, and that they helped us with some last minute things and made sure we got packed and out the door. And I feel like we just made it to the airport like 5 minutes before or something. Like it was crazy. We like ran to our gate, we grabbed some food, we got on the plane. We weren't even sure if they were gonna let us check it. We had to put the helmet in a box, and then we had 2 bags. We fit this in a suitcase, and then we put the suit, the costume part, in a garment bag. So we had 3 check bags, and we were like, my mom was on standby outside in case they didn't take it. She was gonna rush it to the post office and express ship it out there. And then I was like, what happens if they lose our luggage in flight? You know, like which happens, right? So all that work, and then like we might not even get to wear it. So I was like, but then, so we got there and all our bags were there. So then we get there, and even though we put like fragile and handle with care all over the box, it was like the Delta had like drop kicked it or something. And so we had intentionally put the crack in there because it was shattered by a meteorite, but the crack like expanded all the way to the back, and it was like some kind of a miracle that it didn't actually completely crack. And so our amazing friend Chris, who we stayed with in San Diego, drove us all around town the next day to find acrylic glue, which I had lucky enough used before for some art that I had made with acrylic. And it's got this weird like needle, and you have to like, so we would tape the crack together and squeeze the needle in, and it's actually a chemical reaction, so it's not a glue. That's the thing about plastic, you can't glue it, it's not porous, it's just a hard surface. So this actually reacts with the plastic and kind of melts it together, and the bond becomes stronger over time. So the longer it's glued, the stronger it is. So it said it needed 24 hours to set. I think it probably set for like 18 hours or something. So we were like hoping that it would make it through the day, because we had to like push it over my head with quite some force. And but so it did. But you know, but we weren't that, like, I think if it was supposed to be like a solid globe, we would have been like heartbroken. But because it was supposed to be a shattered globe anyway, it didn't really matter to us how many cracks it had, as long as it didn't like come apart while we were wearing it. But so like somehow, over the course of like a week, this costume, in the help of many generous, amazing people, this costume came together, and it actually made it to San Diego, and we were actually able to wear it, and it was pretty crazy. It was kind of a whirlwind. It's kind of our life. So if there's something I tried to brush through everything that we worked on, but if there's something that I missed that you want to ask us, you can put that in the comments, or I can put my email in there. We're also gonna do a follow-up video that just kind of talks about our experience at Comic-Con and our tips for cosplaying at a con, and the portfolio review, which we hit up, which was really cool, and just the general experience of it. So make sure you watch that video also. And then I talked about on my blog, which is like an artist blog, about my creative process for how I make a sketch a reality. So this blog is much more about materials, but if you want to kind of know about the creative process behind it, I'll put a link to that below. Make sure you check Clint. Make sure you subscribe to Clint's blog, because he does really awesome stuff, and Cosmic Mustache Comics is awesome. Make sure you leave a comment on any future Cosmic Mustache Comics videos you would want to see, so we can keep that in mind.
Okay. Now, what is your question? Okay, that's a fair question. What's your response? Okay, that's a good response. What's your favorite thing about Comic-Con? Awesome. That's our best interview of the day. Thank you.
Cosmic Mustache Comics, Cosmic Mustache Comics, Cosmic Mustache Comics, Cosmic Mustache.